He never expected to see that face again, not here, not in this lecture hall, and certainly not when he had finally taught himself how to breathe without him. But there he was, sitting in the second row, smirking like the universe had decided to play its cruelest joke. Professor Daniel Hayes felt the ground shift beneath him. He wasn't just staring at a student. He was staring at the ghost of his own past, alive, dangerous, and painfully beautiful. Daniel had built his life on discipline and distance. At 38, he was known on campus as brilliant but cold, the kind of professor whose sharp critiques left students both terrified and desperate for his approval. He lived in a carefully constructed silence, a routine that left no space for memories of who he once was. Yet the past never truly stays buried, does it? The young man's name on the roster was Ethan Miller. But that wasn't the name Daniel remembered. That wasn't the boy he had once loved when he was barely out of high school himself. That wasn't the boy whose laughter had once been Daniel's lifeline through the suffocating weight of a conservative small-town life. Still, the resemblance was undeniable. Ethan had the same reckless grin, the same defiant blue eyes that dared the world to break him. Daniel's chest tightened as if those eyes could see right through the years, straight into the part of him he had tried to erase. The lecture began, but Daniel's voice faltered more than once. Every time Ethan's gaze lingered, Daniel felt 20 years younger and infinitely more fragile. He remembered stolen nights, whispered promises, and the way shame had crashed down on them when the truth had come out. The church, the family, the town, they had torn them apart. Daniel had left, chasing education as his escape, while the boy he loved was left behind. And now, somehow, that boy had followed him into the present. After class, Ethan lingered. Students shuffled out with laptops and coffee cups, but he stayed, leaning against the desk with a casual arrogance Daniel recognized too well. "You really don't remember me, do you?" Ethan's voice was low, playful, but laced with hurt. Daniel's throat went dry. "You shouldn't be here." "Funny," Ethan replied, folding his arms. "I thought the same about you." The tension between them was electric, thick with years of silence and unsaid words. Daniel wanted to run, to shut the door on the past and continue his life as the detached academic he had mastered being. But Ethan's presence made that impossible. As the days passed, Ethan became more than a shadow from the past. He was loud in class, challenging Daniel's lectures, pushing boundaries in ways that made other students uncomfortable, but kept Daniel tethered to the present. Their arguments were sharp, but beneath each word was something more dangerous, a memory of lips pressed together in the dark, of hands grasping for belonging in a world that never gave them permission. One evening, unable to resist, Daniel found himself outside the library where Ethan was studying. He told himself it was coincidence. It wasn't. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the years disappeared. "You're still running," Ethan whispered when Daniel finally approached. Daniel looked away. "And you're still chasing ghosts." But when Ethan reached out, brushing Daniel's hand with the faintest touch, Daniel's resolve cracked. The warmth shot straight to his chest, and he hated how much he had missed it. They sat together in silence, the air thick with history. Daniel wanted to explain, to apologize, to confess how much it had cost him to leave. But words failed. How could he explain decades of loneliness in a sentence? How could he tell Ethan that every success, every publication, every lecture had been a distraction from the boy he had lost? Ethan broke the silence. "I don't know what hurts more, Danny, that you left, or that you pretended I never existed." Daniel's heart clenched at the old nickname. Nobody called him that anymore. He was Professor Hayes now, untouchable, unreachable. But to Ethan, he was still the boy who once held his hand under the stars, trembling with fear and hope. And in that moment, Daniel realized something terrifying still loved him. The problem was, love had never been enough. The whispers started soon after. Students noticed the way Ethan lingered after class, the intensity in his debates with Daniel. Academia thrived on rumors, and soon, speculation about the professor's relationship with one of his students spread across campus like wildfire. Daniel's carefully constructed life began to crumble. His colleagues raised eyebrows, the dean called him into meetings, and Daniel found himself standing on the edge of losing everything he had fought for. And still, when Ethan smiled at him, he felt like a drowning man who had finally found air. Daniel told himself to walk away, to cut Ethan off before the scandal destroyed them both. But Ethan had never been someone who accepted silence. "You think this is about the university?" Ethan confronted him one night, standing outside Daniel's apartment door in the rain. "This is about you being afraid to love me. You always were." Daniel wanted to deny it, to remind him that professors don't fall for students, that men like them didn't get to live freely when they were younger, and maybe still didn't now. But Ethan's soaked figure, defiant in the storm, broke down every wall he had left. The truth was, Daniel wasn't afraid of the university. He wasn't afraid of scandal. He was afraid of himself, afraid of what it meant to let Ethan in again, afraid of facing the boy inside him who had never stopped yearning. And as the rain poured, Daniel reached out, pulling Ethan into his arms, the years of distance collapsing into one desperate, trembling embrace. For the first time in decades, he allowed himself to feel. The kiss was inevitable. It had been waiting for them in every silence, in every look that lingered too long, in every word unsaid. When their lips finally met, it wasn't soft or cautious, it was a collision of years lost, of grief buried and longing left to rot. Daniel felt himself come undone, not as a professor, not as a man who had learned to bury his heart, but as the boy he had once been, the boy who had loved recklessly and without apology. Ethan clung to him, his body trembling, and for once Daniel didn't try to resist. The rain soaked through their clothes, the city humming in the background, but in that moment nothing else mattered. When they finally pulled apart, breathless, Ethan whispered, "Tell me you don't feel it, and I'll walk away forever." Daniel's voice cracked. "I've felt it every damn day since I left you." Ethan closed his eyes, as if the words hurt more than silence ever could. But when he opened them again, there was no anger, only sadness, and the fragile spark of hope. The days that followed were a delicate balance between fire and ruin. They met in secret, stolen hours that felt like borrowed time. Daniel knew the risk. His career was already teetering under suspicion, whispers spreading like wildfire in the corridors of academia. But when Ethan's hand brushed his, when their laughter filled the quiet of Daniel's apartment, the fear dimmed. For the first time in years, Daniel allowed himself to imagine something beyond the walls he had built. Yet reality was never far behind. A letter arrived one morning from the dean's office, a formal inquiry into his professional conduct with students. His chest tightened as he read it, the words as sharp as knives. He had fought too hard to get here, clawed his way out of a childhood that tried to crush him, only to watch everything threaten to collapse because he had chosen love again. He tried to push Ethan away, tried to convince himself it was for Ethan's sake. "This will ruin us both," he said one night, his voice harsh even as his hands shook. Ethan stared at him, jaw tight, eyes glistening. "You think I care about some degree or your title? You think I came back into your life just to be another secret? You deserve better," Daniel whispered. "No," Ethan said firmly, grabbing Daniel's hand. "I deserve you, all of you, not the version that hides, not the version that runs. Just you." The words shattered him. For so long, Daniel had believed he was cursed to love in silence, to bury parts of himself so deep that no one could reach them. But Ethan was relentless. He always had been. The inquiry became official. Colleagues avoided Daniel in the hallways, some with pity, others with disdain. Students whispered openly. And yet, in the middle of chaos, Ethan stood by him, unshaken. One evening, when the storm felt unbearable, Ethan dragged Daniel out of his apartment and onto the rooftop of a nearby building. The city stretched below them, alive with lights and noise. "Do you see this?" Ethan said, his voice steady against the wind. "This world is bigger than their rules, bigger than their judgment. You once told me love was the only thing that made the world less cruel. You taught me that, Danny. So why the hell are you afraid now?" Daniel looked at him, at the fire in his eyes, and for the first time in decades, he let himself believe. The investigation ended weeks later. There was no evidence strong enough to destroy him, only rumors and suspicions. He kept his position, though his reputation carried scars. But Daniel no longer cared the way he once did. He had survived worse, and now, for the first time, he had something worth surviving for. Their relationship wasn't easy. There were arguments, nights when fear clawed back at Daniel's chest, mornings when Ethan's impatience boiled over. But there were also mornings when sunlight spilled across tangled sheets, when laughter replaced silence, when Daniel caught himself smiling at the simplest things like Ethan burning pancakes or humming in the shower. The past no longer held him hostage. Months later, Daniel stood at the edge of a crowded lecture hall, his students buzzing with anticipation. Ethan sat in the back this time, not as a shadow from the past, not as a rumor, but as someone who had fought his way back into Daniel's life. Their eyes met, and for once, Daniel didn't look away. He began his lecture, his voice steady, his heart strangely light. That night, as they walked home together, Ethan slipped his hand into Daniel's in plain view of the world. Daniel hesitated for only a moment before tightening his grip. No more hiding, no more shame. They stopped at a quiet park, the air crisp with autumn, and Ethan leaned against him with a smile. "So," he teased, "Professor Hayes finally admits he's human." Daniel chuckled softly. "Only because of you." Ethan tilted his head. "Does that mean you're mine?" Daniel looked at him. The boy who had once been his first love, the man who had now become his last, and whispered, "I always was." The world didn't fall apart. The sky didn't collapse. The only thing that happened was that, for the first time in years, Daniel felt whole. Their story wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was theirs, messy, raw, and achingly real. And sometimes, against all odds, that was enough. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.